Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our Ask the Experts webinar. I'm delighted to see that we've got so many people on board as usual. And so this time we're going to be looking at what's going to be happening in 2021, which is a little bit of this and a little bit of science and a little bit of experience on 2020, which kind of put the cat slightly amongst pigeons. We have with us Gil Drury, SEO and social media. Ben.
Good afternoon.
Everything. And me, and I'm a chartered marketer. So what is happening? First of all, just a quick look at, well, let me say, first of all, please put your questions into the box at the bottom and we'll get to them. There's quite a long list there already, I think. There were when I looked. So we'll get round to your questions in due course. If you want to view this afterwards, we're recording it. We'll put it on our website, so you'll be able to watch it there as well. So the situation today, we'll start off. I'll just give you a little bit of context for this. Situation today, as you know, pandemic, Brexit, low carbon pressures on the economy. So you've got an amalgam of three things which are having big impact on the way we do business and on the way customers are behaving. So we have to be able to take those into account in our planning and in our marketing, the way we communicate with them and what we communicate to them. So what should we be doing? How should we be changing our marketing, our communications in order to address this market? Should we be changing our positioning, our messages? Should we be trying to change perceptions of us? What is it that we should be doing? So please ask your questions around that. That would be great. And also perhaps slightly more tactical questions about, how to get better value from your SEO or your social media. What are the questions you'd like to ask? This is your forum to do it. So I think Gil is managing the questions today. Gil, what's our first question, please?
Hi, everyone. The first questions we've had, and I think this is appropriate for Mark to answer, is how should we change our business position in line with market shifts?
Yeah, well, one thing is for sure, and that is that we all have to change. It's no good carrying on being the same in this current environment. And the changes that are being asked for in the market are for companies to show more caring and sharing. So previously, go back certainly 18 months, 2 years, a company was admired for being quick, fast, efficient, possibly cheap, possibly expensive, depends on the position in the market. That still exists. However, it's overlaid with a requirement for companies to show a caring side for society, for individuals in society who've been unlucky in some way or are ill. And it's important for companies to be seen to be doing that. All the research shows that those companies that are doing more to help others and showing that in their communications are succeeding better than those companies that are largely ignoring things and carrying on the same way as before.
So, Mark, what sort of things, let's say, an engineering firm should be doing better to kind of address that in their marketing?
First of all, they need to be showing that they've got more outreach to their local community. Sounds kind of a bit, this is soft stuff, this is gentle stuff, this is not hard stuff. But there's a pandemic on, and it's causing just about every single person in the world a large amount of grief. So your customers and your prospects are actually looking for this in a company. They're looking for companies that are taking care of maybe their local communities, certainly their staff and their employees, probably being more considerate towards their customers and maybe fixing things that they might have otherwise said, you've got to fix it yourself, or we're going to charge you 500 quid to fix this.
Okay, that's good. Another question we had is social media more important now than ever?
Well, can I answer that?
You can,
so,
yeah.
Who asked that?
Marjorie.
Right, Marjorie. Yes, it is. Because it's all about relationships now. And yes, this has been building for years, hasn't it? But really, it's taken us to a quantum leap in the last year. It's all about relationships, the relationship that you have with your customers and your prospects and all your other stakeholders as well, your shareholders, your employees, the authorities, the compliance authorities, and so forth. It's really important to get good relationships with people and not just be a name on a website or on a bit of packaging. It's really important that people feel they can talk to you, feel that you will listen to them, feel that you will respond to them in the way that they would like to be responded to, because everybody is feeling very vulnerable and very upset at the moment. A lot of people are very poor and very anxious about the future. A lot of people are ill. All the worst things that could possibly happen are happening. So it's vital that all companies are able to relate more to their customers, are seen to be in dialogue with them and talking to them. Social media is made for that.
Do you both think that social media will remain such a key player after the world's open up again and people would start looking for sort of face-to-face interaction?
Yeah, if I could share my view just quickly there. I do. I think the world has fundamentally changed or has taken a big step forward along a path that it was already on, and that includes, the relationship with, say, remote working, businesses working more flexibly, entering into new areas that they'd so far just sort of dipped their toe in. And as Mark touched on there, the importance of engagement, which was previously thought of as a sort of an overhead that was a kind of a necessity, but slightly a necessary evil kind of thing. Now engagement really is the frontier where opportunity is presenting itself for brands, and we'll talk a bit more, I'm sure, about what Mark's touched on already, brand value and all the various touch points that a brand needs to develop its identity and deliver its values to its customers. Customers across B2B and commerce are much more discerning in the way that they engage and select and choose their brands. And so, yes, the answer to your question, it will grow and it will develop quite quickly.
I think you could take it even further than that, actually. You could say that that there used to be them and us. Them, these were the brands, these were the businesses, the companies that we did business with, and then there's us. And there was two separate groups. Well, I think what's happened is they've come together, and us, the customers, are feeling that we want them, the brands, the companies that we do business with, we want them much closer to us. We want to share their values. We want to see that if we're going to spend our money with them, we want to see that they're spending their money and in the way that we would like them to spend their money, which is perhaps not putting it into the shareholders' pockets, but putting it into the community, into people who are less fortunate themselves. Hey, it may not be like this in a year's time or 2 years' time, but that's how it is at the moment. And so social media is getting a grip, and I think it's unlikely to let go. And it's part of this process of democratization of the economy, if you like.
Okay, thank you. So we had another question relating to this. How do we build on our brand to help it stand out, especially now? Sadiq asked that.
Sadiq. Thanks, Sadiq. That's a difficult question. Yeah, how do you build on your brand? First thing is you can't stand still. As I said earlier, I think you have to, there is massive change going on in the marketplace, in every marketplace, and you have to respond to that. So you can't stand still. So this is not about redesigning your logo. This is about probably communicating yourself in a slightly different way. And in order to communicate yourself in a slightly different way, you have to consider what you are, who you are, what your values are, what you stand for, what your proposition is, how you're going to relate to the market. So, it's not just style without substance. You have to get the substance right and then put the style behind it.
Could you give us an example of a shift in communication that a company can take?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think a huge number of companies are going through it. I mean, if you take IBM as an example, they are much more active on social media than they ever were. They are much more interested in giving back to the community and, more importantly, being seen to give back to the community. They have a huge department devoted solely to CSR, corporate social responsibility, that has it's been the only growth area in IBM, as far as I can make out, in the last year or so. It's 5 times the size of what it was 18 months ago. So that's a classic example. They've built up communities around different products, different software products, different hardware products that are very active, and IBM is very closely engaged with them. And actually, it's quite interesting because IBM, as a case study, because they were very standoffish and very them and us. And IBM were the sort of epitome of rather old school, and they've swung, the pendulum swung completely.
Yeah, I'd add to that. I think what's been said. I think on the corporate level, those changes have been in the wind for a while. As Mark said, corporate social responsibility has been the buzzword of boardrooms for some years. If anything, the pandemic has just accentuated what was already in process, where they understood that consumers would be voting with their values, and then these shifts are becoming prevalent. And building on the question respect to how to develop a brand, we touched on it earlier. There's various different touch points where you build your brand, and the phenomenon of market shifts, whether it's over a longer period of time or a short period, they demand more of brand identity, brand development, in order that people can sort of nimbly move, and brands are agile enough to adapt to those changes. So, we are looking at brand perception and the cognizance of our brands. We do need to look at cross-channel comms. We do need to think about more rich content, cross-channel comms in relation to the touch points we have for engagement with our customers, how we get these values across. Does our offer need to change? Does it need to be more concise? How well do we perform on customer service or just in our user experience, our customer experiences? So these are all really sensitive areas where brands can make huge strides forward in how they're perceived and how they're received by the market.
Yeah, I think it's worth pointing out that the sharp end of all this, and the one that everyone will be aware of, is in the high street. So you've got brands like Nike and H&M, and retailers like H&M and the John Lewis partnership and so on, who are doing a huge amount to engage with their customers and to develop relationships outside the purchasing cycle, and to express their values and their concern and their care for their fellow man. Now, that's the high street, and frankly, we're not that interested in the high street. We're more concerned with tech, engineering, professional services, that kind of thing. And I suspect many of the people on this listening in this webinar will be as well. So you might ask, well, how does that tie into my business? Because I'm a software company supplying companies that manufacture car parts. Well, yes, what's happening on the high street is the sharp end, and the people who you are talking to as your customers in your software company are very aware of what's happening on the high street, and they see it, they understand it, they approve of it by all accounts, and therefore they are using that mindset when they make judgments about who they should engage with in their company. So they understand that there's more to commerce now than just a simple financial transaction, that it has to be somehow wrapped in a mattress, of a soft mattress of a company that is really trying hard to not necessarily to give back what it's taken out of society, but to share what it has with society. And this is as true of the software company in the automotive industry as it is of the company making wings for Airbus, as it is for Nike. And they're the same people, they're you and me, and they're using these questions, they're asking these questions before they are making their purchasing decisions. And all the evidence points to the fact that this is very important and people are taking it very seriously. This is not fluffy stuff, this is real.
Okay, so we had a couple of questions about this topic, and I'm going to combine them. One question came from Lorna, asking, she's running a small charity, and she knows she's asking how she can then implement this within her business, or maybe we can come up with some ideas. And we had another question from a law firm asking what they should do better in 2021. So maybe if we can kind of put our marketing brains on and come up with some suggestions that a charity or a small law firm can do better.
Yeah. Well, if I get the ball rolling, and then actually I'll bring you guys in. Doing things better is doing things more effectively. Doing things more effectively means reaching your market in a variety of different ways, which are changing all the time. And we've covered some of that today, particularly social media. But there's also Google. And getting to the top of Google is more important now than it has ever been before. And in order to get to the top of Google, there's a whole variety of elements that are involved and that you need to be taking care of. So, Gil, perhaps you talk about that?
Yeah, of course. So, so we've spoken about improving your SEO, your search engine optimization. First of all, I think you would need to go about and check your current website. Is it worth the investment? Does it need to be improved? And one of the reasons that we tell customers now is circle back into your website is that people don't go around and shop on the high street, or people can't come and see you in a meeting. They can't see your offices or like see how your sort of company is managing offline. What they need to do is to be able to see your website and to see that it's up to scratch. So first is the branding and the system and the way that it looks, to make sure it's modern, but then also how it performs on Google or other search engines. You'd want to create content that is relevant to this new sort of changing world and what your customers are now searching for. And you need to create content and upload it to your website. So then your current customers, with their changing perceptions of life or what they're after, will still find you when they search online.
Do you know any of the stats for how many more people are searching now, using Google search now compared to a year ago or 18 months ago?
I haven't got the stats with me, but I guessing there is a much wider, sort of a much bigger increase in numbers. There's obviously people are at home, they can't go about, so they use Google for almost anything they would like to find out information about.
I've seen some figures bandied about by the Chartered Institute of Marketing, but they're Google figures, so I never quite never quite trust them. But, you're talking about a 10% increase in purchases beginning with the search in the last year, which is, massive.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think you would no doubt see organic uptick in traffic more generally, much higher than that, possibly 30, 40%, as Gil said, because of the day-to-day activity, more remote working, and obviously affiliate marketing and remarketing has come into its own in respect to that. So people's habits and search habits are much more closely guarded. Thanks, Lorna, for the question. I'm not sure if we've covered it in full there. To share and repair, it's a good analogy for what I think is being demanded of companies in terms of their values, and in the charitable sector, as you well know, and actually in our friends, the lawyers there, in their sector, getting those values across has always been key, and we see a continuation of that now in the pandemic. And so I think what we've found with some of the charities that we help actually in building websites for is diversifying that offer, as I think Mark and Gil both alluded to, being able to segment your offer into those value areas so that people can understand more about what they personally can engage with. I think a lot of the challenges that charities sometimes have in getting across their offer, as it were, or their support, or their values, what they stand for, is to engage and profile individuals and what their interest might be in relationship to your charity. In terms of sharing and repairing, we as an agency, we do try to engage with our charitable work as often as we can and give back in that way. And I think a lot of companies are being demanded that of them to show. And it's in their associates, in their partnerships. As we said, consumers, B2B or commercial, much more discerning about how they're going to make that choice to buy. They'll scrutinise these things. They'll look under the hood. They'll kick the tires and see what's left wanting.
I think for a charity, there's a requirement to be much more forthright. So traditionally, a charity website would say what we do and why we do it well. And then you'd get into deeper stuff. I think I would be inclined to consider overlaying that, or even leading with how we're helping at the moment. This is the problem at the moment. This is what we're doing to help. And this is, and then as a follow-up to that, this is what we do and this is why we're good at it. So I would go straight in a charity with the help that you're giving and the care that you are sharing, not sharing, but the care that you're using to when you relate with people who you support as a general rule.
Yeah, in answer to your second question, if we can talk about a local example, it's not so much a local example regionally, but a local example that's close to our hearts. We support a charity called Asha, who help people in the slums in India. Mark, maybe you can elaborate somewhat on that whilst we've got the chance.
Yeah. I mean, if it's the Lorna who I think it is, you'll know Asha. Asha look after mainly kids in the slums of Delhi, and so as a result of discussions we've been having, we're redesigning their website, which was really an online brochure, said what they do, why they're good, and how to get in touch with them, and lots of information about them. And that is what it did. So we're turning it into more of a campaigning website. And we're saying, stop kids starving in the slums, donate here. We're saying, give the people of the slums the power to control their own lives, donate here. So we've got a series of campaigning pages, all of which have a very strong message, which are, those campaigning pages are intended to show the concern that the charity has for those particular issues. And they're giving you, as a reader, the opportunity to help them do something about it. So it's gone from just, here we are, we're Asha, doing lovely work with kids in the slums of Delhi, who are kind of having even in the best of times, have a hard time, to where they are now, which is complete catastrophe, as you can possibly imagine. It's just appalling what's happening out there. And so they've become much more hard-nosed about it, but the way it's worded is it's more supportive as well. So we're doing something to help these people. You can help us do it as well, because it's a problem. Without you, we can't do it. And it's a very direct approach, but what comes across is a very caring organization. So rather than a list of things they do, it's saying, we care about this. We want you to help us in our efforts to make it better for these people.
Thank you. So we've got another question by Terry. How can we understand our customers' changing behaviors and thoughts?
Oh, well, yeah. Sorry, I'm going to jump on this one again. So, yeah, it's very difficult, actually. Traditionally, you've got Mintel and Nielsen and people like that who are, the big research companies who are all churning out tons of data about every possible industry and business you could imagine. Every consumer behavior, every business behavior, every industry. It's all there if you're prepared to look through page after page of data. Everything is recorded. Every action, every transaction is recorded and published in Mintel. And Nielsen do the same. And so as marketers, if you want to know how to set your budget if you're manufacturing widgets that get used in the automotive or the aerospace industry, for instance, to set your budget, you need to know what the size of the market is. So you'd look at that and you'd get an idea. You'd look at who your competitors are and get an idea of that. And therefore you'd make certain assumptions. You can't do that anymore, unfortunately, because it's all up in the air. Nobody knows what's going to happen to the automotive industry. Not even sure that, after Brexit, there will be one in the UK. Nobody knows what's going to happen to the aerospace industry. Same problem with Brexit. And the pandemic has killed it dead. Now, there's a lot of bullish talk coming out of governments and companies like Airbus and Boeing about getting it going again, et cetera, et cetera. And let's hope they do. But in the meantime, actually, can you be that sure? There's a public hearing for the local airport, Bristol. There's a public hearing coming up because they've applied to put in a second runway or something, or to enlarge it anyway, to expand the capacity. And they're going ahead with it. And yet they're down to like 5% of the number of flights from Bristol Airport compared to 2 years ago. So nobody has a clue what's going to happen.
I think in the face of that uncertainty, it's shining a spotlight, isn't it, on the brand versus consumer relationship, and how that's become much more important than ever. Where otherwise we're unable to see maybe the edges of market change. So, I think if you are a brand, ask. It's an old-fashioned way, but we're encouraging more and more of our clients to ask their customers what they think. If your clients or customers rate you, value your brand and products, with incentive or otherwise, they will often make the time to give you feedback, and often valuable feedback. Reading that feedback is another thing, and turning it into actionable items. But so you have to read between the lines a little, or craft your survey quite well. But I think we encourage more and more of our clients, don't we, to ask their customer and engage with their customer base on for that kind of feedback, to find out what are the changing behaviours and patterns, thoughts.
It comes back to the early question about social media. And, if you're close to your customers, then close to your market, then you'll know what they want. I mean, I guess what I was saying is a long answer to a short question, which is the traditional forms of market intelligence don't really exist anymore. And they're still pumping out data, but it's all over the place. So a lot of it is down to your gut instinct and your experience as a marketer and as a manufacturer or lawyer or accountant or service provider of some sort. A lot of it's down to that. And you have to be prepared to be opportunistic. If you see an opportunity, you have to go for it. If there's a new sector of business opening up, quickly set up a division, promote it, and try and take advantage of what business opportunity there is there. If in a year's time it's gone, fine, redeploy those people. It really doesn't matter. But at the moment, you need to be able to move, to be very agile and to move quickly. And you need to be able to see what's happening in the market, grab the opportunity and jump on it and make it your business. Because it might go in a year's time, once hopefully we're out of the pandemic. But then on the other hand, it might not. And if you're first to market and you're in there, happy days.
All right. I think we've got time for one more question. How can we decide what we should do, what we should be spending on marketing right now? How can we decide what we should be spending on marketing right now?
Well, I've sort of covered it, I suppose, in that traditionally you'd look at the size of the opportunity using the published data that's available and set your budget accordingly. And because you can't really do that now, it's a bit more of this. There are ways of calculating the benefits of expenditure in some areas. And we've done a webinar previously about how you can calculate how much you should be spending on SEO in order to achieve your objectives. And you can find that on our website. And I thoroughly recommend it because it kind of simplifies what is really a very complicated question. Setting budgets has always been a challenge. And there's no easy answer to that. As much as anything, you're driven by the competition. So if you're going for lead position in the market and somebody else is challenging you and pumping money into it, then what do? Well, you have to fight fire with fire, really. Mm-hmm. I guess it comes back to social media in a funny way. Not everything comes back to social media, but if you've got a good engagement with the market, then that will help you achieve a lot more than just throwing money at a situation.
Yeah, I think we use engagement, don't we, and other tells to establish the need and the requirement. We were to speak plainly for a second about how we take our approach at Marcom to scoping customer projects. We really try to front end conversations with business objectives and strategies. Slightly difficult, as Mark said, slightly challenging with lots of uncertainty within markets, but. If you're led with that kind of thinking, led with that kind of objective focus in terms of scoping for your projects, then the outcomes for spending are at least accurate and detailed and concise, and that's really key, I think, in terms of attributing investment in that way, and scrutinizing the lay of the land and how best to distribute those investments.
So we all spoken about the sort of investment we need to put into social responsibility. What percentage would you say that a business should sort of divert their efforts into social responsibility or marketing their social responsibility activities?
I think it has to be a key part of any marketing plan these days. Like I said several times, maybe in a year's time it won't be. But at the moment, people are looking for brands, companies that they can engage with, that they feel comfortable with, that they recognize are helping and have their interests at heart and aren't just highwaymen trying to get their dollop of cash out of them. So it has to be very high up on the list these days.
Yeah, I think it would develop an improved and sustainable platform for engagement. These are opportunities really as much as anything else. They're good for conversation. They're topics that people can easily engage with. If you do it right, then it should be easy to supplant your brand values into those engagements, and for, as I said, for it not to feel like an inconvenient overhead.
But don't be misled into thinking that just because you're doing that, everything is going to be fine. I mean, at the end of the day, you've still got to be able to produce the right product, the right price. You've got to be able to produce a good service. A lot of people will tell you it's about your approach to the community that makes me want to buy from you. But actually, they ain't going to do it if it's too expensive. You've still got to be able to offer that great service and that great price. But perhaps these are hygiene factors. Previously, they were leaders. Now they're just, you take them for granted because it's got to be right, and you're not going to be in business for long if they're not. What we're saying, and I guess what we've been banging home for the last half hour, is that there's something else happening at the moment in the market which we've never really seen before. There's been a bit of it going on, and it's this corporate social responsibility, these values, and leading with these rather than them trailing behind price, service. What do they used to say for retail? Location, location, location. For business, service, service, service. And so on.
Well, thank you. I think we haven't got so much time to kind of answer the rest of the questions, but we will then, after the session's finished, upload it to our YouTube channel and post it on our website and social media. If you got any other questions, feel free to email us. Mark, do you want to summarize? You got anything else to say?
Yeah, well, I think I just gave a summary. It's the characteristic. If I transmit myself forwards 5 years and look back at 2021 and say what was the strongest characteristic in all business in 2021, it has to be change. And it's change whether you like it or not. It's all been forced on us, and every company has to be prepared to change its business as unusual, not as usual. Very important that you're open to that change. I talked about being opportunistic. Maybe that's difficult if you've got a company of 1,000 people. It's kind of difficult being opportunistic because you've got this kind of juggernaut moving, and things happen slowly. But frankly, in that case, you have to start internally and set up an agile system, and you have scrums and things like that, and get people thinking into agilely and fast and responding fast. If you can't do that, then there's something wrong with the way that your business is set up at the moment, and you have to find that agility and that ability to jump onto any opportunity, change your offering to suit the market at the moment.
Thank you. All right. So thank you, everyone. As I said, we'll post the videos and we'll send you follow-up emails about them, and have a great day.